I'm not gonna lie, the north of Europe has never been at the top of my travel bucket list. I love warm weather, and the risk of spending my holiday under an umbrella always put me off. This summer though, I finally decided to get over myself and go on a whirlwind solo tour of the north. My itinerary included the three Baltic capitals, Helsinki and Stockholm, as well as the Norwegian fjords and Oslo. In this first video, I will show you the first stop on my tour, Vilnius, the capital of Lithuania. The Baltics are something of a crossroads, which makes it kinda hard to place them. Because of their geographical position, and perhaps because of the 50-year Soviet occupation, many people wrongly assume the Baltics belong to Eastern Europe. I can see why. When I arrive in Vilnius, my first impression is not that of a Nordic country. The place looks more central than Northern European, and I'm really curious to understand what it is all about. What better way to begin my exploration of Vilnius than its UNESCO-listed old town, with its quaint streets and interesting sights. I start at the lovely Town Hall Square, a traditional meeting point for trade and events in Vilnius, and then walk down Pilies Street, taking in the beautiful architecture all around. Within minutes, I reached the vast Cathedral Square, with the statue of Vilnius's founder Gediminas, the palace of the Grand Dukes of Lithuania, and of course, the neoclassical cathedral with its freestanding bell tower. The church was built on top of the ruins of the city's lower castle, which leads many scholars to believe that the bell tower was originally one of the towers making up the city's fortifications. Between the tower and the cathedral, I look for the Stebuklas miracle tile. It is said to have wish-granting powers, but more interestingly, it was the starting point of the human chain of 2 million people, stretching from Vilnius to Tallinn, who joined hands on August 23, 1989 to demand the independence of the Baltic states from the Soviet Union. Cathedral Square is a great place to people watch, but it also turns out to be the ideal spot for me to try my hand at what seems to be the Vilnians' favorite mode of transportation, the ubiquitous and super convenient electric scooter. From the square, I decide to walk down the elegant, stately Gediminas Avenue, the main streets of Vilnius, where I discover a completely different side to the city. This is where locals come to shop or go to the theater, and where many of the country's institutions have their seat. I'm heading to the Museum of Occupations and Freedom Fights, across from Lukišė Square. The exhibit is located in the former KGB headquarters and teaches me loads about the brutalities perpetrated by the Soviets, which included mass arrests and deportations. In the basement, I visit the KGB prison, where over 1,000 prisoners were executed over the years. The space has hardly changed since those dark days. Walking down the humid corridor of the prison and peeking into the cells is a chilling experience. I would say the museum is like a punch in the stomach, but to be honest, it is an important stop in any itinerary in Vilnius. To clear my head, I go for a stroll along the Neris River. Here, I suddenly feel like I'm in the countryside. For a few minutes, all I can hear is the leaves rustling in the wind and the water gurgling. I follow the path along the Neris until I reach the Bernardine Gardens, another quiet corner in the middle of the city. From here, it's only a stone's throw away to one of the most beautiful buildings in town, the Church of St. Anne. It was built in a late Gothic style known as flamboyant, at the time of the Renaissance when the rest of Europe had largely forgotten about Gothic architecture. It may have arrived late to the party, but St. Anne clearly made an impression. In 1812, during his ultimately failed campaign to crush Russia, Napoleon took Vilnius and said that he wanted to take the church apart and transport it to Paris. Luckily, he didn't. Despite the wealth of architectural styles adorning its streets, Vilnius' soul is without a doubt Baroque. This is actually the largest Baroque city north of the Alps. Its love story with Baroque began in the early 1600s and lasted for around 200 years. At first, Italian masters were commissioned by some of the wealthiest families in the Grand Duchy to come and build churches. The best example of this early period is the stunning interior of the Church of St. Peter and St. Paul, a stark reminder that Baroque is not exactly understated. Later on, following a series of devastating fires in the 1700s, Polish architect Johann Christoph Glaubitz rebuilt many buildings in Vilnius in what would become known as the distinctive Vilnian Baroque. The most impressive is the Church of St. John's on the campus of the Vilnius University. For an authentic Vilnius experience, head to Hales Market and just enjoy the atmosphere of old ladies shopping and locals grabbing a quick bite to eat. The sweets on display look pretty tasty, but not particularly healthy. Then again, Lithuanian cuisine is known for its hearty, comforting food. Speaking of food, you can't leave Vilnius without having tried the Zeppelin dumplings. The other famous snack here is kepta duona, fried rye bread, but I have to say it is way too garlicky for my taste. To try and burn off my late lunch, I walk up the hill east of the cathedral to Gediminas Castle tower, the last standing section of Vilnius's upper castle. What I see today is actually a 1933 reconstruction, but the original fortification was built by Gediminas, the legendary 14th century ruler who is credited with the foundation of the Duchy of Lithuania and its expansion all the way to the Black Sea. It's a windy day, and from up here, the sky looks like a painting that gets more spectacular with every second that goes by. As I look at Vilnius, I feel like I'm seeing both the past and the future of the city. On one side of the hill, I get spectacular views of the old town, with its bell towers and historical buildings, while on the other, north of the river, I see the modern towers of Nipiskes, the city's newest business district. It occurs to me, these two very different images embody Lithuania's journey to get past the years of Soviet occupation by embracing both its rich past and its future as a 21st century European capital. Nowhere is the modern, hip and freedom-loving nature of Vilnius more evident than in Uzupis, the bohemian neighborhood that in 1998 proclaimed itself an independent republic. In Uzupis, I find art installations and galleries at every corner, nice bars and street art. The self-declared nation even has its own constitution, which can be found, translated in 23 languages, on panels hanging to a wall on Paupio Street. Uzupis is welcoming and picturesque, and the ideal spot to relax with a drink at the end of a long day of sightseeing. It is by far my favorite place in Vilnius. After 2 days packed with activities in the Lithuanian capital, it is time for me to hop on a bus for neighboring Latvia. Destination: Riga. But that's for the next video.